Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'll be covering one of week 2's problem sets called WORDLE50. So how this program is gonna work is similarly to the popular Wordle daily game. So you guys can try to click on this and play the daily game to understand how the program works. But in a nutshell, you have 6 tries to guess a 5-letter word that the program has come up with. And after every single guess, you'll be given a clue. For example, this time, in this example, the user guessed crash, and if the character that is displayed is yellow in color, that means that the word you're supposed to guess, which is the correct word, has the letter C, but it's not the first letter, or it has the letter S, but it's not the 4th letter of the word. Similarly, for the next guess, as you can see, the S is green in color, that means the S is in the correct word, and it's also the first letter of the correct word. Similarly for E as well. And if it's red, that means it's not in the letter you're trying to guess. So H is not the letter you're trying to guess, and because the word you're trying to guess is since. Alright, so now let's get started. So here we have the source code, and you guys don't actually need to know what the entire program is doing. Like they mentioned here, that you'll see some large pieces of the program, and yeah, you guys will be able to understand more of what it's doing in the next few weeks. But I'll just give you guys a rough overview of what it's doing. Maybe explain what this define is doing, because understanding this define will be pretty helpful later on in the program. Define is basically saying that you're defining this word to be this letter. So to be this digit, sorry. So you don't have to keep writing 2 when you want to start something from 2, or you want to specify something to be 2. You can just write this word instead. So for example, you want to put x is equals to 2. Instead of writing x is equals to 2, you can just put x is equals to exact, because exact is going to be having the exact same value as 2. And similarly for this will come in handy when you're changing the character color. So for example, S here is green and O here is red. You can basically just write this words down rather than writing this entire ANSI color code. Alright, so don't worry if you guys don't get it. It's not very important at the moment. You get what I mean later on in this program. And then here we have some function prototypes that we'll be implementing and filling up the code for. And yeah, now the main program. So let's start off with to do 1. So here in to do 1, we are supposed to we have to make sure the extra command line argument they entered is a single command line argument. So as you can see here, the total command line argument is gonna be 2 in total. So anything other than 2, we are supposed to tell the user that the usage is /wordle word size. So how we do that is we can just see what args is. So if args is not equals to 2, we want to print f usage /wordle word size and \n. Alright, and then afterwards we want to return a true to tell the user that what they did is an error, and also to exit out of the main function. Alright, so that should be it for the first to do. Pretty simple in the beginning. And then the next to do, we have to make sure that the extra command line argument that they have entered is either the digits 5, 6, 7, or 8. Alright, so, and if it's not, then we are supposed to give the error message and also return 1. So how do we do that? First and foremost, we have to actually make sure that the argument that they have entered is in fact a digit. How we do that is by using a function that is in the C-type library. And in fact, you guys can make use of CS50 manual pages to see what are the functions available for us. For example, in ctype.h we have isDigit function, so we can use this isDigit function to check if the extra argument that they have entered is in fact a digit. So let's include ctype.h, and next we can check. So if argv1, which is basically where the user is supposed to enter their digit, if argv1 is not digit. Alright, so if argv1 is not digit, then we want to return 1, and also printf this. Alright, so what does this exclamation mark is digit argv1 mean? So as if you read the documentation for is digit, you'll realize that if it is in fact a digit, then it will return non-zero int. Alright, so return value non-zero int. But then we want it to enter this if condition when it's not a digit, right? So we want to convert this 0 if it's not an integer to a 1, and that's why we use this inverse character. So if we use this exclamation mark, whatever is in here will be just converted back to a 0 if it's a 1 and 1 if it's a 0. So it's like a Uno reverse card. And so after checking if it's a digit, what we can do is we can check if the digit is less than 5 or more than 8. And if it is, then we can reprompt the user. Sorry, if it is, then we just want to return 1 and end the program. Alright, so however, there is actually a problem in doing that. We can't just, argv1 if argv1 is less than 5 and stuff. What we have to do is actually convert the argv1 from a string to an int, because when the user is entering a digit or a string or whatnot into the argument as a command line argument, the input is automatically converted into a string. And if you guys did the Caesar problem set, you guys might have came across the a2oi function, and this is basically a function to convert the string into an integer. So let's take a look at the a2oi function. So in this a2i function, we basically enter a string as an input to the function, and the return value is going to be an integer. So we can basically do this as they mentioned here. So anyways, we would have to in fact convert the string to an integer here anyways, right? So yeah, this is where we're supposed to do 2 actually. I accidentally did it here. So yeah, let me just move all of this stuff down. So yeah, alright, and then what we want to do is word size is equals to a2i argv1. Alright, so this is where we are converting the string which is entered by the user into an int and storing it into this int variable. And now we can basically just check if the word size is less than 5 or the word size is more than 8, then we want to return 1, and before that we want to tell the user that the word size must either be 5, 6, 7 or 8. Alright, so wow, nice. Now we have the first to-dos done, and as they mentioned, this is a good place to stop and test before proceeding to the next to-do, and let's just stop and test for a moment. So make Wordle. Alright, so I noticed what my error was. It's just that the isDigit function accepts a character as input, but here I used a string as input. So what we can simply do is just do this. So in the string, I want to index into the first character, which is going to be either 5, 6, 7 or 8. And here actually an additional check we can do is using the strlen function for argv1. So if argv1 is consisting of more than one letter, then we would just want to tell the user that word size must either be 5, 6, 7 or 8, right? Yeah, so strlen argv1 if it is not equals to 2, if it is not equals to 1. So if the length is more than 1, it's either a two digit number or something, right? So that's that. Let's use make 50, make Wordle, sorry, make Wordle./Wordle. Let's try 1, and it's saying that, right? Let me just enter, let me just add a \n, and for example I enter 9, and it's gonna tell me that. And for example I enter 99, and it's gonna tell me that. For example, if I enter 5, then it's gonna be correct. We have 6 tries. Alright, so awesome. Now we can move on to the next few to-dos. So to-do number 3 is gonna be in the getGuess function, right? So if the word size entered is 5, then it's going to be looping through this for loop 6 times because they have 6 guesses. Alright, so let's look into the get guess function to see what is our to-do tree. Alright, so in this to-do tree, we want to make sure that the size of the guess is in fact 5 letters, and if it's not, we want to reprompt the user, right? So let's do that. And for that, like they mentioned, like they gave us a clue here, we want to reprompt much like Mario, and they're just basically trying to say that we're supposed to use the do while loop. So do while sure length of the guess is not equals to 5, because it's going to be a 5-letter word, and it actually depends on what the word size is. So depending on the word size, we want to make sure that it's equals to the word size. So guess is equals to get string, and here we want to ask the user to input a 5-letter word, but like previously, it depends on the word size. So what we can do is %i and comma word size, and then once it passes this do while loop, then we want to return the guess made by the user. Next, let's move on to to-do number 4. Alright, so here in to-do number 4, we are supposed to set the status array initially to all 0. So just for clarity's sake, I will just be illustrating what this status array is doing. Alright, so this status array, for example, our word size is 5, and obviously it's the status array, the size of the status array is gonna depend on the word size. So for example, our word size is 5, and it's initially gonna be 5 zeros, and depending on if the letter that the user has guessed is in the word or not, it will either be 1 or 2. If it's 2, that means the letter is in the word that we're supposed to guess, and it is also in the correct place, and 1 basically means that the letter is in the word that we are trying to guess, but it's in the wrong position. But in this to-do number 4, we are only supposed to set the status array to 0. Alright, so for int I, we can't actually use int I because int I is already used in the parent for loop. So int j equals to 0, j less than word size, and j plus plus. And we have to loop through all of the statuses, the items in the status, and then set it to 0. So status j is equals to 0, and that's about it actually. And yeah, like they mentioned, this is a good place to stop and test our code once again. Yeah, definitely gonna miss semicolons. Yep. I guessed it. Line number 135 here. Okay, let's try again. Make Wordle ./Wordle5 computer wrong games. Alright, so that's a correct guess. Alright, so now moving on to to-do number 5. In this to-do, we have to implement the check word function, and in this function we are supposed to compare each of the letters from the guess to the choice. Guess is the guess that the user has made, and the choice is the correct word that the user is supposed to guess towards, right? And if the letters match and they are also in the correct position, then we want to score 2 points and break out the loop, right? Score 2 points and store it in the status and break out the loop. However, if we find that the letter is in the word but not in the right position, we score 1 but we don't want to break, right? Because the word might show up later in the correct spot. And we don't have to explicitly set it to 0 when we handled it wrongly, because by default our status array is 0. Alright, so and then over here they also give us very generous hints, alright, so that we can solve this very difficult to do. So let me just illustrate what we are actually supposed to do. Maybe you guys are not understanding what the hints are, or maybe the implementation process that they have explained wasn't too clear to you guys. And don't worry, I'll do an illustration for you guys, right? So for example, I'll just use the example that they gave in earlier in the code. For example, we are supposed to guess the word since, and our first guess, right? Our first guess is gonna be crash, so CRASH, right? And the actual word, which is choice, right? Choice is gonna be since, SINCE. So here, what the program wants us to do is iterate over this guess, right? And then for every iteration, for example, we iterate it, and our current loop is at C, we want to iterate through since, right? So we iterate to this, and then we iterate through S and check if S is equals to C. So we are in this iteration. Let me just change it to C so that you guys know which iteration we are on. So C, we iterate to S, we see that no, S is not similar, S is not the same to C. And then we go to I, we see I is not the same to C. And then we go to N is not the same to C, and then we move over to C, and then we notice that, oh, C, and then the choice also has a C. Now what we want to do is in our array, right? So before that, we see that C is the guess that we have made, and this letter C is also in the choice. However, it's not in the correct position. Then, so as you guys noticed, it is gonna be if it's not in the correct position, right? So what we want to do is status, and we see that it's our first guess. It's our first letter in the guess. So status 1 is gonna be equals to close, which is gonna be 1 point, right? And then that was the first round, right? And you guys get the point, right? And then we go over to R, and then we compare R to every single letter in our choice, and then we see that R is not in the scenario, and then we set status of this is gonna be 0 because array starts from 0, so this is 0th index and then 1th, the first index. So status 1 is gonna be wrong, right? Over here, wrong is gonna be equals to 0, so it's gonna be wrong, which represents 0.0. So that's one of the examples. Let's say that maybe guess 2, right? So guess 2, we have scone, SCONE, right? And then we compare it to choice once again. Let me just set all of it to black, right? And then we compare, right? So we are in the S, right? And then from the S, we want to loop through all of the choice, and then we notice that, oh, S and S match. And then what? We check if they are in the correct position. And if they are, we set status 0, because that's the current iteration, right? The current iteration is at index 0, right? So index 0, which is gonna be equals to exact, right? And exact is gonna be 2 points. If you guys don't understand it, don't worry. Hopefully after I type out the code, it makes much more sense to you, right? So let's move on to typing out the code. Alright, so writing the code for the actual to-do 5. Okay, so actually you guys can just so to be frank, you guys could have just, you know, followed the instructions blindly and would have still gotten the correct answer. So let me just, you know, follow the instructions here and try to copy what they are saying. So first step, like I mentioned earlier in the illustration, is looping through every single letter of our guess. So int I equals to 0, I less than word size, I plus plus, right? So this I is gonna represent the index for every single letter in the guess. So yeah, we will be just doing something like this, right? So yeah, and then now we want to iterate over every single letter of our choice, right? So for int j equals to 0, j less than word size, j plus plus. All right, so this j is going to represent the index for every single choice, every single character for the choice, right? So now the third step is to compare the current guess letter to the current choice letter, right? So if guess I is equals to choice j, right? If this is the case, then we have another two ifs to either set the color of the character to green or yellow, right? So if the I is equals to j, which means that the position of the guess, it's also the same as the position of the choice. So if this is the case, then we know that we can set the status for that position to be equals to exact. And this is basically the same as setting status to 2, right? So now after doing this, we want to just break out of this for loop. We want to break out of this for loop so that we don't compare the letter further, because we already found that, you know, the exact same letter is already there, right? Then the second if condition, if it's in the word but not in the right spot, then we score close so that the character turns yellow. So else, actually, these are the only two conditions, right? So it's either that or else this. So we can status I is equals to close, which is gonna be just status I equals to 1, right? And this time we don't have to break it because we want to continue checking, right? Maybe in the next few letters we can find the correct character. And then afterwards we want to keep track of the total score by adding each individual letter score from above. So after looping through every single one of the characters, we want to be summing up all the scores in each of the characters in our choice. So it's gonna be score plus equals status I, right? So if it's 2, then we add 2 to the score. If it's 1, then we add 1 to the score, right? And this break, once again, just to mention, this break is just breaking out of this for loop. You guys are probably not very familiar with this statement because it wasn't really covered in the lecture, but yeah, that's what it does. And so this should be working right now. All right, so now moving on to the next to do 6. So now this to do 6 is gonna be us filling up the print word function. And what is this function doing? It's printing the guesses that the user made, but this time it's gonna be printing out the guesses while color coding each character. Green for the correct letter and also the correct position, yellow for correct letter but wrong position, and red for red just to represent that the character is not in the word that we're supposed to guess in totality, right? So here we are getting the guess, the word size, and the status, right? So what we want to do is we want to loop through every single guess, and then depending on what the status of the guess is, we want to set a color for that character. So for int I equals to 0, I less than word size, I plus plus. Right, so now we check if the status of I is equals to exact, right? Then what we want to do is print out the character but with the green color code. And to do that, we can do something like this. So print green, then we can add %C for the character, and then we can put a comma in the end and print out the character. So guess I, right? And else if status I is equals to close, then we want to color code it as yellow, YELLOW. And else there's only one more condition, and that is to print out the character as a red, printf red. Alright, And now let's just check if everything is working fine, if we are not missing any semicolons, and just make Wordle dash okay, nice, no errors. Make Wordle, and let's say it's a 5-letter word. And just for the ease of debugging, let's just print out what the correct word is. So let's print out the choice, right? So here we are actually picking the choice, and maybe somewhere around here I'll just be printing the choice. So printf choice %s comma choice, and let me just enter \n. So this is just for our debugging sake, so that the color of each character or each string is correct. So make Wordle semicolons, make Wordle /Wordle5, and the word we're supposed to guess is chili. So let's say we guessed China, and okay, nice, CHINA. CHI is the correct letters in the correct spot, so it's green, and NA is not even in the choice word, right? So let's say we think of MILLE. It's not even a word, but you know, I just want the maybe the center letter to turn yellow and the last 2 letters to turn green. Alright, so that's nice. So IL is yellow because it appears in the correct word, but it's not in the correct position. So it seems that our color coding is working out perfectly well. So now moving on to to-do number 7, our last and final to-do, right? So for to-do number 7, it's actually gonna be either printing you won or you lost to the user, right? Okay, but before that, let me just actually type out chili. Okay, and it ends. So that part is working correctly. So this is just checking if my score was calculated properly, because if all of the statuses are I, the total score is gonna be equals to 10, because we have 5 letters and 2 points for each letter is gonna be 10. So it seems to be 10, and this 10 is being actually checked up here. So if the score exact is 5 times, so they are somehow checking if we are winning through the use of the score variable. So now to do number 5, print out the game's results. So here, if the user won, we say you won. If the user lost, we say you lost. But we also tell him what the correct word is. So if 1 is equals to true, then we gonna say printf you won, right? And else, if you lost, then it's gonna be printf you lost, and then we want to print out the word, right? So printf choice %s choice. Okay, so I can just use the correct word is this, and \n as well, just to make everything look nice. Yep, okay. So this should be it actually. Let's try make Wordle /Wordle, and let's say we actually think of the correct word. Sin you won, and let me just add a \n, and let's make Wordle again, and let's say we don't come up with the correct word. So basin, let's say we just write I all the way. Okay, so you lost, the correct word is basin. Alright, so it seems to be working just fine. And let me just do a quick check 50 to check if everything is fine. Alright, so we have passed all the checks. We have come to the end of this video. If you guys like this video, subscribe and hit the like button. If you guys have any questions to ask, you guys can just comment down below, and I'll try my best to reply and help you guys out. And see you guys on the next video. Bye bye.